with the ball, starts running and tries to reach the highest possible speed or get to a certain spot on the pitch in the shortest possible time over a given distance. So there are three most important, often overlooked components of acceleration in rugby. Number one is the force relative to the ground, which is obviously Newton's third law of motion. The greater the force, the better. Number two, the strength of the arms and lower back. And number three, body angle relative to the pitch, which is important not only for acceleration, but also for dominant carries. So once somebody tries to tackle us, obviously we try to get as many meters as possible with the ball going forward. So if we have a good angle against the pitch, the more meters we can actually do with the ball. So these are the three things I'm going to talk about here. So up top, we have a 100-meter sprint, a start of the sprint, which is the first step actually. And on the bottom, we have acceleration and rugby. And you can see it's pretty similar as far as the angles of the lower body, the support leg, the lead leg, arms. Obviously, we have the ball here. Here we have guys actually running in practice without the ball. The biggest difference here between sprint start and a rugby start is the body angle. You see the angle is a little bit bigger here, obviously because the acceleration is longer in 100-meter sprint. In rugby, the angle is about 30 degrees relative to the pitch because we're trying to get to the max speed earlier than we do in a 100-meter sprint. That's why we can't start off with a low body angle. Plus, we have to watch what's in front of us as well. You see the sprinters can look down because they don't have anyone trying to tackle them. So that's why the angles are a little bit different. But the mechanics and the muscles that are responsible for good acceleration are pretty much the same. So acceleration is important because the player needs to try to get as many meters as possible going forward, obviously with the ball, before a contact with a defensive player is made. In the initial phase of acceleration, the athlete's body is at 30-degree angle to the pitch, and maintaining a large angle to the pitch for as long as possible indicates a well-trained acceleration phase and will likely lead to a higher top speed if there's a chance for a top speed, obviously. Some of the wingers will get to the top speed more often, but a lot of rugby is just acceleration and strength and trying to like muscle through your opponents. There are certain, obviously, I'm talking about rugby union because rugby sevens you get to top speed more often. But rugby union, everything is more congested. The top speed doesn't happen so often, so it's more like just acceleration over and over and over again. And if there's a chance for top speed, we got to make sure there's good acceleration, so we actually can hit that top speed. And proper body angle against the pitch will also put a rugby player in a better position when getting tackled. So when getting tackled, you want your hips low. You don't want to stand up straight, obviously. So with the angle against the pitch, you're not only going to have good acceleration, but it's also going to put you in a good position to get hit or hit your opponent that's trying to tackle you. If you stand up straight and somebody tackles you, you're going to go straight back on your ass. So you want to run through him with your hips low, with a good angle against the pitch. And then you have a better chance of actually gaining some meters and going forward instead of like stopping right there, getting stopped by a defensive player. So the lower back is the link between the lower body and the upper body, and the force against acting against the ground moves up along the kinematic chain from the feet to the shoulders through the lower back. That's why lower back is very important for acceleration. So a strong lower back is a strong link that reduces the risk of dissipating the force that's generated against the ground. So then the athlete, a rugby player, will generate force against the ground. The force is going to go through up through kinematic chain through the lower back. So we want strong lower back in those athletes. And obviously the deadlift would be the best exercise for strengthening the lower back. And the type of deadlift in which a rugby player achieves a greatest training effect is the one in which the range of motion is the greatest. So I like to start if there's a if it's possible, because some rugby players won't have that mobility. But I like to start with the snatch grip deadlift from the podium. I will show you a picture in a second. And then following the mesocycles, the height of the deadlift is increased and the range of motion is decreased. So the back angle will change. So we have the back angle will change and it's going to go up. So the back angle is going to be similar to the start of the acceleration in the first mesocycle. Another important parameter for acceleration in rugby is squat strength. So it's another important aspect of improving acceleration, because during acceleration, ground contact time decreases as the athlete gets closer to the maximum speed. So when you start accelerating, the ground contact time is actually long, and the more steps you take, the ground contact time shortens and shortens and shortens. So the longest ground contact time occurs during the first step, then a second step, then third, fourth, and so on. Once you get to the maximal speed, the ground contact time is really short. That's why force is directly related to the stride length, and it's most important at the beginning when a rugby player is trying to generate maximal force against the ground, to take the longest stride to get to a certain spot on the pitch as fast as possible. So the longer strides we take at the beginning, we'll get to a certain spot faster and we'll gain more meters with the ball. And squats strength actually relates great to the acceleration because of the long ground contact time and the great force that we need to generate against the ground to move our body forward. So the greater the force, the longer the stride, the better the acceleration. So this effect is directly related to Newton's third law of motion, which says for every action, which is force against the pitch in this case, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the more force against the ground we will generate, more force we're going to get back, and faster we're going to accelerate. Another important thing is arm strength, because it's often overlooked by athletes trying to improve acceleration. If we go back even to this picture, let me go back for a second, you'll see arms are highly active in acceleration. Even with rugby players, you see the arms swinging back as they're starting to run. So arm strength is really, really important to accelerate good. The arms complete kinematic chain and act like a pendulum to balance the forces generated by the lower body. And pull-ups are by far the best exercise for improving acceleration, because the main muscle groups involved in pull-ups are the lats, and it's the only muscle actually of the upper body that connects to the lower body. That's why when the force goes through the ground, through the legs, to the lower back, through the lats, up to the arms. So it moves along the kinematic chain. That's why just chin-ups and pull-ups and rowing motions are so important in acceleration. So not only strength in a squat, strength of the lower back with the deadlift, but also pull-ups are very important for acceleration. So we're trying to get 12 pull-ups with your own body weight. Obviously, if you're a back, a winger, it's easier. If you're a prop, it's going to be a little bit harder. But some props can get 12 pull-ups easily. That should be a minimum goal for anyone who wants to improve their acceleration. Without getting to 12 reps, one will never reach their full physical potential in the upper body. Why 12 reps exactly? Because based on 1RM continuum, 12 reps is exactly 70% of maximum weight. And 70% we know it's the minimum to gain strength and muscle mass. So we need to work above 70% of 1 rep maximum. If you want to gain muscle, if you want to gain strength, we want to be up above 70%. So 12 repetitions is exactly 70%. We have the 1RM repetition continuum here. That's actually from in my book as well. And we see on the bottom, we have 12 repetitions, which equals around 70%. And going up, down repetitions to 1, obviously 1 was going to equal 100%, 2, 94, 3, 90, and so on. So if we do 10 repetitions, for example, and that's our max repetitions, we know that we did about 70% of rep maximum. So if we're not able to get to 12 repetitions, we're not even working at 70% maximum. So we want to get to 12 repetitions. And obviously looking at strength, the best repetition range and percentage range for relative strength improvement. And for the fiber type improvement that we want, it would be 1 to 5 repetitions and above 85% of rep maximum. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more a little later. When we're doing any type of repetitions, if it's 6, 10, 12, whatever, we want to actually be close to the target as far as reps in reserve go. So reps in reserve are, for example, if you're doing 6 repetitions because your plan, your training plan says you have to do 6 repetitions, and you do 6 repetitions with any weight, and you put the weight back, and you ask yourself in your head, how many more repetitions could I have done if I had to? If the answer is more than 2, then the weight is probably not enough to get the specific adaptation you're looking for. So usually, obviously, 0 would be the target. So if I'm doing 6 repetitions, I'm doing 6 and I can't do any more. Obviously, looking at good technique, the tempo, the range of motion, and things like that. So up to 2 repetitions in the reserve is fine. That's why we usually give a repetition bracket when we do repetitions. So for example, 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 4 to 6, 3 to 5, 1 to 3, and so on. So you get that bracket of 2 repetitions based on how you feel that day. So if you're, again, going back to the example, if you're trying to get 6, but you only get 5, so you add -1 here, that's too much weight. You have to lower the weight. Obviously, if you get -2, that's even worse, and so on. So you want to get within that 2 repetition bracket. If you have more reps in the reserve, obviously there's times when you want more reps in the reserve. If you're doing like a recovery workout, you're doing more sets and things like that, right? But if you're doing, you're trying to get 4 sets at certain weight or 5 sets at certain weight, you don't want that repetition, the reps in reserve go up more than two repetitions. So you want to be within that window of 0 to 2 repetitions for that rep range. So acceleration obviously is going to lead to speed. If we get a chance to get to the higher max speed, if you have good acceleration, you'll get to the max speed faster and earlier, and you're going to be running faster. So obviously muscle mass is correlated with the running speed. You probably realize that sprinters and explosive athletes are much muscular and stronger than endurance athletes and long distance athletes. And wanted to talk about Usain Bolt for a second. So the force that Usain Bolt exerted against the ground was actually measured in Monaco in 2011 by a researcher, Andrew Udofa, PhD, who found that Bolt exerted a force of above 430 kilograms on the ground with each step. That's with each leg. I think one leg was like 436, another was like 480. But both legs were above 430 kilograms. So it's 1,000 pounds with each leg, with each step against the ground. And that gave him the highest maximal strength out of all the athletes that were in that race. So he was actually the strongest. He would generate the most strength or force against the ground with each step. So this allowed him to lengthen his stride, generate higher impulse is strength times ground contact time, and reduce the number of steps in a 100-meter run. So he actually took 41 steps in that run when he broke the world record. And other athletes that were in that race, they would take between 44 and 47 steps. So he would take at least 3 to 6 less steps in that 100-meter race because he was generating more force against the ground and was able to lengthen his stride. And it was not only because he was taller. There were at least 2 athletes at the same height that took more steps than him in that race. So it's not, some people argue that it's because of his height and long legs and things like that. Obviously, that is a case to some extent, but like I said, there's other athletes, other 100-meter sprinters that would take more steps, and they weren't that fast. Oh, excuse me. So he took 41 steps in a 100-meter race in Berlin in 2009. Others took 44 to 47. Like I said, he also developed the highest running speed in history, which is 44.72 kilometers per hour. and around 60 to 80 meters in that race. So you see how long he was accelerating for. Like in rugby union, it's really rare to accelerate for that long. Obviously, a couple times a game, maybe you can break out to 100 to 60, 80 meter run. Rugby 7, probably more, obviously. So for good acceleration, there's a greater distance that needs to be covered. But with rugby, we want to actually get to that top speed earlier. That's why the athletes are starting off a little higher. The sprinters would start off a little lower against the ground. That's what we talked about, the body angle, 30 to 45 degrees, 45 for the sprinters, 30 for the rugby players, because we want to get to the top speed earlier if we have a chance. So accordingly, the key to running fast is a long stride, and a long stride is achieved through a tremendous absolute force on the ground. So the more absolute force we have, the better. So the stronger we are, the better. Because even looking at Usain Bolt, he weighed above 90 kilograms. So his relative force, so strength measured by his body weight, was not the highest, but his absolute force was the highest. So he was able to generate the most force against the ground, but he weighed above 90 kilograms. So there are people like Osafa Powell, he would generate higher relative force because he was a little lighter. But because Bolt was able to generate higher absolute force, that actually helped him to run faster. So the best way to increase the force generated relative to the ground is to teach the body to generate maximal force regardless of the angles in the joints. That's at the beginning of the mesocycle. So if we start a mesocycle, that's how we would start it. So during one of the most important exercises for leg strength, the barbell squat, for example, an athlete should start from the pins in the upper and complete range of motion. I'll show you the pictures in a second as well. In the first mesocycle and finish with the lower full range of motion in the last mesocycle right before the start of the season. So we're actually going to work from the top to the bottom. And with the deadlift, we worked from the lower position to the top position. So you'll see that in a second. So this way, an incomplete squat, like a half squat, is performed with a much greater weight, allowing the body to learn how to generate maximal force against the ground, which will later translate to the full range of motion. So because we are doing a half squat or a quarter squat, we're able to load the bar heavier. So we are teaching the body to generate force against the ground, regardless of the body angles. So the nervous system is getting more improved, and our body is learning how to handle heavy weights. So obviously with the quarter squat, we can do more weight than with the half squat, than with the three-quarter squat and the full squat. So full squat will be like the weakest, obviously, because of the range of motion and the joint angles, and quarter squat will be the highest for us. So we are teaching our body how to squat the most, regardless of the joint angles, and then we're going to lower the squat all the way to the ground. So here's an example of the 12-week microcycle for the squat to improve acceleration. So we see week 1 to 3. So usually if we have a chance, we do 3-week mesocycles, but it could be as short as 1 week, depending on the time we have. So this is accumulation 1, intensity about 83%. And we have a high bar back squat from safety pins, and we see the first 30 degrees of knee flexion. So 4 to 5 sets, 4 to 6 reps, 2 to x0 tempo. So 2 seconds down, 2-second pause on the pins, explode up, 0 second up top. This is actually supersetted with some jumps. So that's why there's a 10-second rest here. So we got A1, A2. We could do like a barbell jump squat or a box jump or something like that. And then we take a long rest. So this is first mesocycle. We do that from 1 to 3 weeks, and we start at 30-degree joint angle. Then the second mesocycle, which is week 3 to 6. So the next mesocycle 2, which is intensification 1, obviously higher intensity. We have a high bar back squat from safety pins, and we're going down now to 45 degrees of knee flexion. Okay, we can go down. It's a descending set, 5, 4, 3 to 1. 3-second down, longer eccentric portion of the lift because of the longer range of motion. We have the 2-second pause on the pins again, explode up, 1 second up top, just to recover a little better up top with the heavier weight. And weight will increase from set to set. So we always have to pick weight based on the type of set we do. If you do a straight set, obviously the weight can stay the same. But if we have a descending set like here, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, obviously we have to up the weight with each set, okay? The third mesocycle, which is week 7 to 9, which is accumulation 2. I use undulating periodization most of the time. That's how you see accumulation 1, intensification 1. Now we have accumulation 2, and then we're going to finish with intensification 2. So intensity 85%. And now we have a box squat with shoulder width stance up to 90-degree angle of the knee. It's not a classical box squat like you do with West Side Barbell and powerlifting. It's more just to get the angle correctly here at 90 degrees. So we started at 35, then we got 45, now we have 90 degrees. And then we have, this is actually a cluster set. So it's a 3, then we rest 10 seconds, do a 1, rest 10 seconds, do a 1, rest 10 seconds, do a 1. So it's like an advanced type of set here. And then the last 3 weeks, we do a full squat. So we do this right before entering like preseason. So we kind of build up our squat with the shorter range of motion and trying to get the strength up regardless of the joint angles, but we're going down with the range of motion with each mesocycle. So now we have a full barbell back squat, at least 120 degrees of knee flexion. And we're doing a full squat here. And by that time, we should be squatting more than we did before because of the shorter range of motion we did before. And actually, we're going down with each mesocycle, but increased. We were able to do more weight than we would do if we just kept doing full squat. As far as the deadlift, I said we start with the full range of motion for the deadlift. So we go from the bottom to the top because these angles are more closely related to acceleration. So we got great hip flexion, and also we need great back strength for acceleration. And this type of deadlift, which is a snatch grip, conventional deadlift from the podium, is actually going to put the lower back under the highest stress because of the longest range of motion. That's why we see the 5-second eccentric here. So we're going to lower the weight slowly. And the lower back is going to go through a long range of motion. That's going to increase its strength, which is going to help in acceleration. So we not only have similar joint angles for acceleration with grip knee flexion and knee hip flexion and knee flexion, but also great range of motion for the lower back. So this is accumulation 1, and with each mesocycle, we're going to increase the back strength. So now you can see side by side, that's the next mesocycle, intensification 1, the next mesocycle, accumulation 2, and intensification 2, and you can see how the back angle actually changes from mesocycle to mesocycle. So we have the most horizontal back here, and then with the first mesocycle, we had the most vertical back. So it's kind of opposite to what we did with the squat. Here we go with the greatest range of motion first. We finish with the shorter range of motion. With the squat, we go opposite. So the squat progression, like I said, is more strength specific. So we have long ground contact time with acceleration. So we try and get this back squat as strong as possible, which is related to Newton's third law of motion. So we try and get as much strength as possible in the first few steps. The more strength we can generate in the first few steps, the better the acceleration. And with the deadlift progression, it's actually more angle specific. So we start with a long range of motion with the back angle about 30 degrees, and we try and get the deadlift up with the range of motion going up. So strength in rugby, I want to move on to strength now. A rugby player with the ball after making contact with the defensive player, so after the initial acceleration phase. So we have the acceleration phase, now we're getting tackled or somebody is grabbing onto us. So the rugby player is trying to gain as many meters as possible. We call this carry dominance, right? So if we get tackled, we get more meters in. That's dominance on our part. So while the opponent or several of them, try to take him down or tackle him. So to do this well, a player with the ball must overcome his own body weight, the weight of the opponent's body, and additionally the strength of that opponent, right? So therefore, the basic strength exercises that will have the most carryover, such as the full squat, should be performed, and the goal is to get to 2 times body weight to counter those forces. So we're not only countering our own body weight forces, we're also trying to counter the forces of the opposing player that's trying to tackle us. So we always try and get to at least the 2 times body weight with the full squat with those athletes. Why strength is important anyway for our athletes, not even just rugby players. So all athletic activities actually require the generation of force, just as all motor skills and fitness aspects are positively correlated with strength and can usually be greatly improved without specific training. So that means a rugby player can become faster, accelerate better, can generate more force, more power by simply becoming stronger. So strengthening muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones can effectively reduce the risk of overuse injuries, tears, fractures, while improving endurance and conditioning as well. Agility and coordination also positively are related to the higher strength levels, as are flexibility, precision, and balance. So strength should never be viewed as a negative physical aspect. This is a good quote on the bottom that I like, and it's true. You can have great strength without power, but you can't have great power without strength, right? So strength is a prerequisite for power. Obviously, just getting stronger is just one piece of the puzzle. You need other pieces to put things together, maybe work, specifically work in the lower range as far as the 1RM percentages go, maybe 60, 70%, sometimes go 30%, but you need to get strong first and foremost. You can't build great power without strength, okay? You can have strength without power, but you can't have power without strength. So now we see what happens when a player, after acceleration, is trying to get tackled either by one opponent or 2 opponents. Okay, you need to have great angle because the players that are tackling you, they're going to have a good angle on you. So the lower you can get with the hips, the lower you can lower the center of gravity, and the stronger you are, the better chance you have of actually winning that tackle or winning that collision and gaining some meters, and then less chance you're going to have of getting injured. If you're standing straight up because you're weak and your lower back is weak and your legs are weak and you're tired, then you pretty much, you can asking yourself for injury, you're asking yourself for a great tackle by your opponent. So you want great strength of the back, of the legs, to stay low to the ground, to have low hips and have lower the center of gravity. When those hits come, then you're ready for it. So a great quote by Barry Ross. Barry Ross is a strength and conditioning coach, was a strength and conditioning coach for Allyson Felix. Allyson Felix is a 7-time gold medal Olympic winner in 100 and 200 meter run. She's an 11-time gold medal winner in the World Championships in 100 and 200. So he trained her, and that's his quote: maximum strength is crucial because the athletes slow down when their muscle fibers are not strong enough to maintain tension during impact. For example, when a foot strikes the ground. So if you're not strong enough, with each strike of your foot to the ground, you're going to be slowing down, you're not going to be speeding up. And the more of those runs that you do, obviously in rugby, you have to repeat those runs. You have to repeat sprints over and over and over again for 80 meters. So to be able to repeat that, you're going to have strength reserve. The more strength reserve you have, the less tired you're getting, the more you're going to be able to repeat it throughout the whole game. Another quote by great Louis Simmons: you can't lift a heavy weight slowly. What does that mean? It means a difference between a contraction velocity and movement velocity. So movement velocity is when you see something that's moving fast. Contraction velocity is based on your nervous system and how your nervous system reacts to the weight that you're lifting. So what Louis Simmons means here is that you can't lift a heavy weight slow on purpose. So if you're maxing out on a bench press or a squat, Nobody purposely is doing that slow. It looks slow because the movement velocity is slow, but it's a very fast movement to the nervous system. So your nervous system activates the fastest fast twitch fibers, high threshold motor units that are related to those fibers to lift that weight as fast as possible. Even though it looks slow to the naked eye, it's really, really fast to the nervous system. Okay, so it's not fast to the naked eye like with lightweight. With lightweight, it's actually opposite. It's fast to the naked eye, but it's not that fast to the nervous system because nervous system doesn't have to send those signals to the body to activate fast twitch motor units, fast twitch motor fibers to lift that weight because the weight is light enough for a slow twitch to act fast to lift that weight. So I'm going to talk about that more in a second. So there's 3 quotes by Dietmar Schmidbecker. If you don't have a lot of maximal strength, you can't be fast. When you work at that intensity below 60%, you only activate slow twitch fibers, even if you lift the load as quickly as possible. So you can't really activate fast twitch fibers if you work under 60% of 1 RM. Even though you're trying as hard as you can, you're lifting the weight as fast as you can, it looks fast, but your body doesn't need to activate fast twitch fibers to lift that. Your body reserves the fast twitch fibers for the heavy weight. Okay, so to activate most fast twitch fibers, an intensity of at least 90% of 1 RM is needed. So anytime you do 1, 2, maybe 3 rep maximum, that's when you get the most fast twitch fibers. And that's when you train those fibers to activate fully. So when you need to activate them in a game, like for example, with acceleration, then your body is already taught how to do that because you're teaching the body by lifting heavy weight to activate those fibers. So when your competition comes, hopefully your body learns how to do that, and it's going to do that without the weight. So that's the idea. So the influence of strength is great. Stronger individuals perform change of direction better. They sprint faster, they jump higher and farther, perform better in their respective sporting events. So here, obviously, we have in red tackle and ability in rugby. You can check this study out. So there's many benefits of strength, not only injury prevention performance, but actually specific to the sport itself. So there is more and more study proving that just getting strong is gonna not only increase athletic performance like jumping ability, sprinting, and change of direction, but it's also gonna increase the technical aspects like tackling ability in rugby. So here we have a back squat relative to the body weight on the left. So we see 2.5 body weight here, 2 times, like we talked about, 2 times body weight, 0 here, and then performance capability on the bottom. So the strength deficit is the first part here. So from 0 to 0.5 body weight. So if somebody weighs 80 kilograms and squats 40 kilograms, he's just learning or she's just learning to apply force. So that's the initial phase here, learning how to squat, learning the mechanics, the tempo, the range of motion, things like that. So learning how to use strength in an explosive manner. Then we have the strength association, which is in the middle here. So anywhere from 0.5 to 2 times body weight in a squat. So this is the point of this is where the greatest effects as far as sports performance goes. So improvement in performance can be directly related to increased muscle strength. So once we increase strength from 0.5 to about 2, that's when we see the greatest improvements in all performance tasks related to rugby or any other sports. And then around 2 times body weight here, we hit strength reserve. And strength reserve is the window of adaptation for improved performance resulting from increased strength. It becomes smaller. So it doesn't matter if we get to 3.5, 4 times body weight, the performance is probably not going to increase. It could be even detrimental to us. So that's why we said that 2 times body weight is our goal. And then anything above 2 times body weight, most of the time is not needed. It depends on an individual. But most of the time, around 2 times body weight with the squat, we are starting to look for more advanced methods in the training. So introducing different advanced methods of moving the bar faster, generating more force, learning how to generate more power, working on other things. But we can never stop working on strength, obviously, because if we stop working on strength, that 2 times body weight is going to become 1.5, 1 point body weight, and etc. So we want to stay at 2-point body weight. That's going to still require great effort from us and great amount of training sessions and things like that to keep that 2 times body weight. But we don't necessarily need to go up to 2.5 now. That's not really going to benefit us in any meaningful way. So if I weigh 80 kilograms or 90 kilograms, then 160, 100, and 80 kilograms in a squat, in the full squat, I'm talking about full squat, should be enough. So some of the quotes by some of the greats, so Dietmar Schmidbleicher, Tudor Bompal, Leonid Medvedev, are all related to strength. So maximal strength is the mother of all physical qualities. Strength is the mother of all abilities. Strength is the foundation for the development of all physical abilities. Be whoever you want to be, but be strong first. So this is the bottom of the pyramid, guys. So we want to have the wide pyramid base, so we get the highest peak. The pyramid is only as tall as its base. So we have a wide base for the tall peak for all other abilities. Current literature confirms that muscular strength is crucial for athletic performance, and developing it through resistance training has enormous benefits. So there are some other studies for you to check out here. And obviously, we need to know the strength types. So there's different strength types. You probably know this and seen different variations of the force velocity curve with the different types of strength and percentages. Here on the left, we have more detailed strength types with the percentages. So we have the relative strength, absolute strength, maximal strength, eccentric, which can go up to 170% even on the eccentric. That's the strongest contraction type, obviously. We have the concentric with the isometric with 100 plus, depending on the angle of the isometric. Obviously, we can go up to 100 plus of the 1 rem. They have the strength, speed, starting strength, speed, strength, explosive, reactive, and ballistic. So we need to work through the whole force and velocity curve, starting from 30% up to 100%, depending on the person. One is going to need more strength, one is going to need more speed, more reactive strength, and so on, or different phases or different mesocycles, or can focus on different strength types and strength qualities. We just need to know what percentages and what speeds of the bar need to be hit to work on these strength types. When we need to develop them, we can do that by using specific percentages. Now, the influence of strength is obviously important also for plyometric activity. So if we want to do like high-level plyometrics, we see up top like depth jumps or drop jumps, we need to be able to squat heavy. Like we said, at least 2 times body weight. That doesn't mean that if you do 1 depth jump or 1 drop jump, or do a couple sets of those at high intensity. So high intensity means dropping from a higher, so 30 centimeters or like 20 inches, 50 inches, and so on, 40 centimeters. That's not going to necessarily cause injuries right away, but over time, it can cause injuries, overuse injuries, shin splints, jumper's knee, lower back pain. Over time, it can cause those overuse injuries, and then it can develop into more serious injuries. So if we want to do those high-level plyometrics on a consistent basis, we need to be strong enough. So for low-level plyometrics like counter movement jump, pogo jumps, obviously like 1 times body weight in the back squat is good enough. But if we get to the higher level plyometrics, we need to make sure that we're strong enough to be able to handle that over time repeatedly. Because that's what the game is. Like rugby game is pretty much a high level plyometric game all the time, because you're running at high speed, you're landing and things like that. So we want to be strong enough, plus you're getting hit. So we want to be strong enough to handle those forces. So strength training and agility in rugby is actually correlated as well. So strength training is great for stimulating the muscle tendon connection and fascia, which increases power production and improves the use of kinetic energy during changes in direction. So individuals with a high percentage of type 2 fibers, so the fast twitch fibers, will naturally be better suited for agility and will have a better elasticity than those with slow twitch fibers. So we have a 10-meter shuttle run here, and we have the 1 repetition maximum squat here. So you see the stronger individuals actually generated lower time. These are seconds here on the side, and these are max. These are 220 kilograms, for example, in a squat, 200, 180, and so on. So we see the stronger individuals would generate lower time in a 10-meter shuttle run, which is important, obviously, for rugby, because we're not only running in a straight line, but we're changing directions. So agility is important, but agility is just pretty much force generation on an angle. It's not in a straight line. But the better we are at generating force on a straight line, the better we're going to be when we actually try to change direction and do agility training. So that's also going to correlate greatly. So how do we measure strength besides just back squatting? Some people can't fully back squat. They have different restrictions, maybe mobility restrictions. We can't test them for full back squat. We started using isometric mid-thigh-pull, obviously, which is like a standard now in all sports. And we measure peak force. Peak force should be between 40 and 50 newtons per kilogram of body weight in the isometric mid-thigh-pull. That's when you consider pretty strong. You want to be, for rugby, we're looking closer to 50, then closer to 40 if you're training like a soccer player, right? That's 440 should be plenty enough. If you're working with rugby, more like a strength power athletes, you want to be closer to 50 for sure, or above 50. So for example, if somebody did 360 newtons, that's what you get on different force plates. You get newtons, you don't get kilograms. And you divide that by body weight. For example, somebody was weighing 73 kilograms, which is 160 pounds, you get 43 newtons. So that person is pretty strong, and it fits between that range of 40 to 50 newtons. So 1 kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds, is actually 9.81 newtons. So if you want to count how much weight you actually lifted in the isometric mid-thigh-pull, because if somebody says you did 3,160 newtons, that pretty much doesn't tell you anything. You want to know kilograms or pounds. You can easily do that. You can do 360, divide that by 9.181, which is 322 kilograms minus body weight, which gives you 249 kilograms. So that's how much we lifted on that, based on that example. So we started using isometric mid-thigh-pull for the past few years. We pretty much use it with all our athletes, all our rugby athletes. So the isometric mid-thigh-pull is a test to assess athletic force ability. It's highly reliable, simple, quick to perform, really basic, and it really is correlated with all the performance capacities and the dynamic athletic tasks. And you can see the mid-thigh-pull here. So it takes around 5 seconds. We usually do 3 trials for 5 seconds, separated by 60 seconds rest. You have to use the wrist straps, so the grip is not a limiting factor. So let me show you again. It's for 5 seconds. So it's pretty much like a second pull position of the Olympic weightlifting. You see the ankle dorsiflex, knee going forward, the back angle pretty straight with the head going up, and arm straight. It's the strongest position a body can be in, pretty much. That's why we test in that position. And we have here one of the rugby props actually doing with and you see the peak vertical force here. He's close to 6,000 newtons, which is good for a prop. No sound. And here we have relative to the body weight. So we said we wanted to be between 40 and 50. He's close to 50, which what we want for rugby. So like I said, the isometric mid-thigh-pull performance relates to sports performance. There are different studies and different correlation here. On the left, we have dynamic strength, more like just like strength and Olympic lifts. On the right, we have more of the athletic tasks that we want. And I highlighted 5-meter sprint, 20-meter sprint, and 5:05 change of direction time, which is important for rugby, obviously. So the higher the number here, the higher the number, the greater the correlation of performance. So what about lifting weights quickly? So I'm talking about strength a lot. What about just lowering the weight and doing it very quick? I touched on that briefly, but will I become faster or will I accelerate better if I lift a light barbell quickly? So fast body movement is not developed by pressing, lifting, squatting quickly. It's actually exactly opposite. So weights at 90 to 100% of maximum can only be lifted slowly. So we established that before. So what you see on the outside does not correspond to what happens on the inside. And I said there's a difference to the naked eye. There's a movement velocity piece and contraction velocity piece. And I'm going to use 2 quotes by Barbiaz again from his great book, Underground Secrets to Faster Running. Let me read that word by word so it's easier to understand. The processes that occur in muscle fibers during high-intensity strength training, 90% plus, is similar to a commander's tent during a fierce battle. It sends a call to the central command center to recruit additional motor units. Only the largest type 2 fibers units are recruited because it is unclear how long and how frequently this heavy weight will be lifted. Myofibrils and all types of fibers are fully engaged and working, and their motor units are activated at full speed to maintain the heavy weight in motion. The weight moves slowly, but the motor units are activated as fast as possible. Larger motor units are activated faster than smaller ones to provide the necessary force. All new recruits, type 2 fibers, will be trained and ready to work when the time of competition arrives. If the central command center determines that there will be continuous demand for larger motor units. And another quote from that book to follow up, excuse me. This does not apply to those insisting on lifting weights quickly. To lift a weight as fast as possible means that the weight must be relatively light. Slow twitch motor units are capable of handling the load, but there is certainly no need to recruit new ones. The command center will not produce additional large type 2 motor units. During competition, a smaller number of available large motor units causes the muscle to rely on smaller, slower motor units to do the work. So I'm not saying that you should only do 1 repetition maxes and 2 repetition maxes and 3 repetition maxes. I'm saying we need to do anything from 30 to 100%. We can't forget maximum weight. We can't forget going above 90% of maximum, because that's the only way we can actually recruit all the fast twitch motor fibers we have. If you're just going to lift the weight as fast as possible and it's going to actually move fast, it's going to be light enough for the type 2 fibers to handle that weight. So you're not going to be teaching your body how to activate those type 2 fibers. So there's an inverse relationship. I'm going to go over some parameters really fast. Inverse relationship between number of reps and rests. Make sure when you hit low reps, you actually your rest is long enough. So the rest is actually correlated to the number of repetitions. The higher the repetition number, the lower the rest. The lower the repetition number, the higher the rest. Obviously, you need longer rest with the higher central nervous system involvement with the low reps, like 1 to 3 reps. So on the left, we have the neural adaptation. On the right, we have the metabolic adaptation. So metabolic adaptation will be closer to 20 reps or going up to 20 reps, and neural adaptation will be closer to 1 rep. And we have different adaptations and different things that are happening. With the 1 rep, with the neural adaptation, we have more type 2 fibers involved, more ATP, CP demands, more sets we're going to do. We're going to take longer rest. We're going to have a shorter time under tension, obviously with the lower reps. We're going to do less exercises per day. With the more type 1 fibers, we're going to have more glycolytic demands. We're going to do less sets. We're going to take shorter rests, longer time under tension, and we can do more exercises. So when we structure our program, make sure we're doing all the parameters correctly, not just the weight, but the reps, the sets, the tempo, time under tension, and rest should be correlated to each other to get the most bang for your buck. So with the relative strength, the reps are actually based on your training age. The more training age and the higher the training age, the less reps you can do for relative strength. If you're a beginner, if you're just starting out, you can gain strength doing 8 repetitions easily, right? The more training age that you have, if you go up to 10 years plus training age, you pretty much need to stay between 1 to 4 reps to gain strength. So it all depends. If you're training a whole team, they have different training ages, you might have to adjust the reps to work on relative strength based on their training age. Time under tension is also a key factor. So if you do 3 repetitions, you can do 3 repetitions in 50 seconds. If you go really, really slow, right? You shouldn't do that because that's going to mean you did a really low weight. But the time under tension for strength adaptation should be between 1 and 20 seconds. But if you're a beginner, you can go up to 20 seconds. The more advanced you are, time under tension is going to be more close to 10 seconds. It's actually going to correlate to what we saw here. It's going to correlate to the reps because you're going to, if you an advanced athlete and you have 10 years experience, you're going to do 1 to 4 reps. So that's going to take about 10 seconds, 15 seconds maybe. So the more a beginner of you are, the longer time under tension you can use for strength. Again, the more advanced you are, the shorter time under tension you should use. So as far as rest is obviously based on your ATP recovery. If you're strength training and you're working above 90% of rep maximum, the energy source is mostly going to be ATP and CP. So that's why you need longer rest. That's why on the bottom you see 180 seconds rest for pretty much a full ATP recovery. So you need at least 3 minutes to fully recover between heavy maximal sets. Obviously, if you're using light sets, you can only take 30, 60, 90 seconds, whatever, because you're not fully depleting ATP in this case. Reps versus sets. So the rest is also directly correlated with the reps. If you're doing 1 to 3 reps, for example, and you only rest in 90 seconds, there's a big chance that the weight is not heavy enough. If you're doing 1, 2, 3 repetitions, you almost want to rest 3, 4, 5 minutes. Like you don't want to go earlier than that. If you're going earlier than that, then you're Superman, or you're pretty much not using weight that's correlated with those reps. So your reps in the reserve are too high. Okay, so depending on how many reps you're doing, the rest is going to be correlated to that as well. And now we kind of put everything, I put everything together for you guys. So on the top, you have the variable, you have the intensity, you have the reps, the sets, the rest in superset, adaptation time, time under tension. So kind of what we did, what I just showed you before. And on the bottom, I added velocity because working on strength, it should above 85%. It should be somewhere below 0.5 meters per second. Sessions per week, 3 to 5. You can't do really more than that. Sessions per month would be about 20 to 12, all the way down to 12. Obviously, anaerobic lactic energy system, very high metabolic efforts, only 3-4 exercises per day because of many sets, long rests. You can't do 8-10 exercises. The training is going to take too long. And the rest between sessions should be about 48 to 96 hours. And anything up top, we just covered in these pretty much. I just showed you here how everything looks kind of put together. One of the last thing I want to show you, if you're absolutely lost in everything that I just showed you, there's this great graphic here from Ashley Jones. Ashley Jones is an absolute legend in rugby strength and conditioning. If you don't know who Ashley is, please get to know him. He was a head strength coach for the All Blacks, for the Wallabies, for the Scotland national team, for Samoa national team. So he worked in France. He worked in New Zealand. Now he's at Canterbury Academy. So he put this graphic together. So if you're looking on the left, and this is directly for rugby athletes. If you're looking for the left, if you have to the left, if you have no idea what to do, the first question you should ask yourself, is the player at desired mass range for position, right? So if the muscle mass on that player good enough for his position? And there's only two answers, yes or no. The answer is no. The answer is simple. You should do some bodybuilding and you should do some powerlifting, right? Those two things. Get strong and get big. That's the most important thing, right? Uh, that's your priority at this point. If you said yes, he's big enough for this position, there's the next question you should ask yourself. Is the player at desired strength range on major lifts, right? So if his squat is strong enough, deadlift, press, chin-ups, bench press, and so on. And there's also only two answers, yes or no. If there is no, the answer is no, he's not strong enough. You should do powerlifting and strongman training, okay? I wish I had time about talk about strongman training because we use strongman training greatly with rugby at least, but I don't have time. I'm already almost over time. So I'm finishing up here. So if he's not strong enough, do some powerlifting, do some strongman, and you should be good. If he is strong enough, then you can do some more explosive testing. So you can test for explosive strength. The most basic strength, explosive strength deficit test is the comparison between the counter movement jump and a squat jump. So counter movement jump is pretty much using the straight shortening cycle. The squat jump is eliminating the shortening cycle. So you go down, you pause for 3 or 4 seconds, then you're just doing testing like a concentric only jump. And you're looking at deficits, right? If the deficit is below 77.5%, you should do some Olympic lifting. If it's between 7.5 and 12, you should combine all different training methods, powerlifting, strongman, Olympic lifting. And if it's above 12.5, Olympic lifting and strongman. All right, so very simple answers. Within that, you can implement all different strategies, periodization models, exercises, rep ranges, different training methodologies. But this gives you a very general idea of what you should work on if you have absolutely no clue. Very simple questions, very simple answers that should guide you to the correct path. And I want to leave you with this quote by Jerry Palmieri. It's a great book, The Golden Age of Strength Conditioning. If you don't have that book, you haven't read it, you in this profession, you should be ashamed of yourself. It's a great book. It's about it's actually stories of 32 coaches that help to shape our profession. It's mostly coaches that started working with American football in the United States, because that's pretty much where the profession of strength and conditioning has been born. So that's his quote. Unfortunately, as our profession has progressed to put a greater emphasis on movement, some coaches have minimized the value of strength in the overall development of the athlete. We must not forget we are strength and conditioning coaches. Everything else falls below that. So here is my contact info. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, that's my email, my Instagram, my website. I threw in some pictures to show you that I'm not lying. I'm actually working, right? I'm working in the gym, working on the pitch with rugby. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me, to message me. Give me a few days. I'm good at responding, but I'm not good at responding right away. So give me a few days to respond. If I don't respond after a few days, please repeat the message. Sometimes the message or the email gets lost somewhere. So repeat the message, message me again. I'll be sure to answer if you have any questions. I know we don't have much time for questions now, but if you have anything, please message me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that talk, Merrick. Just in the interest of time, we'll take a quick 2-minute break and then we'll go right to Dr. Grahowski.